A lot of pressure on Uncle Joe. There is a lot of explaining. I had a cold. I was jet lagged. I got to get more sleep. But it really works around what we all see. Now, as I've told you, and I'll say it again, I would take Joe Biden on a hospital gurney for 4 years before I want Donald Trump in there.
Right.
And that's one of the problems. It's been such a focus on Joe Biden that we lose Donald Trump, the danger and the specter of a changed America in a brutal way. We lose it in all of the talk of Biden. These are weird political times, and honestly, the way you come across in media isn't insignificant. So let's give Biden all the credit for having made some transformative moves as president at a divided time when you did not have Congress. You had essentially to work across the aisle. He really did do that. And his landmark infrastructure bill provides for all of these different things that Trump talked about, but Biden actually did. So I'll give him credit for that, for the CHIPS Act, for the veterans, et cetera. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that this administration has successfully done. Having said that, this comes to, unfortunately, how you come across. That's why the media part of it has nothing to do with administering and being president. We all know that Donald Trump can't administer his way out of a paper bag. He's awful as a manager. His administration was full of corruption. 3 cabinet officials resigned under clouds of corruption. And the rest of them were largely either incompetent or they were lobbyists who were put in place in the various agencies that they had been suing before Trump won. So the notion somehow that Donald Trump can manage America or manage anything is absurd. 4 bankruptcies. He's a failed real estate tycoon. The reality is, if you read the David K. Johnston books, that this is a guy who's just failing up. But again, because of the distraction that is Joe Biden, we don't focus on these things that I've just mentioned. And so it's how you come across. And Trump is a con man, and he just keeps it coming. The fire hose of rhetoric, of verbiage, of lies, of stuff he's just made up, of things he's taken credit for, of things he said people are telling him. And so it's effed up, but that's an effective way to win the presidency. Apparently, he's done it once, and it looks like he's going to do it again. So here's what's happening on the Democratic side of the ball. Increasingly, wealthy donors are saying, I'm not going to support with my money Joe Biden any longer. They're encouraging him to drop out. The Disney heiress and other wealthy Democratic donors say they won't finance the party until Joe Biden drops out. So they're cutting off funds to all Democrats. This is their way of applying pressure. Biden, of course, as you know, has doubled down. He said, I have no intention of withdrawing from the race. And major donors, I mean, I'm talking about millions and millions of dollar donors. Those people who write those checks, among them Abigail Disney, the granddaughter of Roy Disney, who co-founded the Disney company. She's funded for years Democratic efforts. And she's saying no more until Biden drops out.
Wow. When the Disneys are taking a stand, you know you got a problem, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, MAGA Mickey is...
Trump 2024!
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I intend... Mickey, the official Mickey, has taken no official stance on the race. I intend to stop any contributions to the party unless and until they replace Biden at the top of the ticket, she said. This is realism, not disrespect. Biden is a good man and has served his country admirably, but the stakes are far too high. If Biden does not step down, the Democrats will lose. Of that, I'm absolutely certain. The consequences for the loss will be genuinely dire. She's not wrong. Yeah. And so there is a panic across the Democratic Party in general, because this is sadly important to winning elections. You need money. You need money for staff and administration that gets the vote out. You need money, obviously, for media buys. You need these things cost. In Hollywood, Damon Lindelof calls on Biden to drop out. Who's he? Damon, who I've actually played cards with a couple of times. He's a very nice guy. Lifelong Democrat, he says, and I love my complicated, glorious country. I'm not writing this anonymously because I'm asking others in positions of influence to do as I am doing. I don't know if I have to say it's going to matter, but I know what my eyes and my ears and my heart tell me. I've been asleep at the wheel, and it's time to wake the F up. And he wrote this piece in Deadline Hollywood calling on President Biden to drop out. Now, I was just going to get back to who he is, but you should Google him, Kim. You can, or Albert.
Google it.
One of the creators of Lost. He has a ton of high-profile television shows and films. He's a very powerful, creative force in Hollywood. And more to the point, he's a big Democratic donor, and he leads that group of Hollywooders who, again, there he is.
Big money, yeah.
Yeah, who dump big money and who lead a charge to support Joe Biden. And that was the case until that debate. Barry Diller. Barry Diller, the media magnate, who is now, he is unapologetic. We have an excellent vice president. He believes that Kamala Harris should be in the first position. Where's the Diller piece here, Albert? He had a couple of quotes. Barry Diller said no when asked if he and his wife Diane von Furstenberg will continue to support Biden.
People are backing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a scenario that we'll discuss with Michael Shore, but this matters. This matters. Meantime, Donald Trump...
I just put another link in there for you, Mark, for Barry Diller.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, here it is, the Ankler. Right, thank you. I mean, this is a guy who's, a real Democrat. And now you add him to the list that I was just giving you of high-profile Hollywood figures and business people. Barry Diller is a media magnate. Mm-hmm. And there are a few. There's Barry Diller.
Diane von Furstenberg is very stylish. Look at her always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gave $100,000 to the president and the Democratic Party's joint super PAC for the general election. I think Jeffrey Katzenberg is still on board. But I mentioned Damon, the producer and showrunner. And when you actually talk to people, the Aspen Ideas Festival, the high-profile CEO of Endeavor, agent, if you want to think of him this way, Ari Emanuel, he also very down on Biden's possibilities. So what is Joe Biden saying? Well, what isn't he saying? Look, he's all that stuff that we've said before, right? Cold medicine, jet lag, and I need more sleep, and I'm going to stop scheduling events after 8 p.m. I mean, this is a guy who can't get out of his own way. Did you think that that's going to win with the general public?
When I saw that, it made me think of those old presidential commercials where the phone rings at 3 a.m. Who do you want in charge of your country? Because things happen in the presidency after 8 in the evening. At 2 in the morning, the missiles could start flying on the other side of the world. So, I mean, that's great that you're going to go to bed early, but you better be able to wake up in the middle of the night and have it together, my friend.
Well, the reality is that the number of times that that's going to happen is really small, but what Kim is saying is exactly what everybody's thinking. So no one really focuses on the reality, which is, dude, they don't wake you up in the middle of the night much with stuff. I mean, Donald Trump was on the golf course. He didn't come down from the residence until 11 a.m. Okay,
Wow.
remember that. Okay, and then it was like an hour that he met. He didn't read any briefing materials. And then Donald Trump went back to catch, what was it, the 5? He had to be back, to watch the 5 and some other Fox show that he was, he wanted to watch. He was a golfer and a TV watcher. That's who Donald Trump was. So it's been a while since you had a president who was really keeping the lights on late at night and up first thing in the morning. So the schedule, in a weird way, doesn't bother me, but in another way, I don't know why you would say it. I mean, this is my point. I get it. Do you think Donald Trump says, look, I'm looking forward to starting my day at 11 a.m. I'll meet with everybody for an hour. Of course, I haven't read any of the briefing materials. But then I'm going to have a big lunch. I love the kitchen at the White House. And then I'll get in some golf. That's really what my daily routine will be. Do you think he would say that? No, he said, there's no president in the history of this country that worked as hard as I have. And I have a knowledge of terrorism and of domestic affairs that no other president. Many people are saying they are amazed by how much I know. I mean, that's the crap that Donald Trump says. What does Joe Biden say? I'm going to cut down. I'm going to get to bed earlier. Gosh, I think I'm doing too much. It's just not the message you want to send. I get it. Dude, you're right. You need to get to sleep sooner. You need to take care of yourself, whatever it may be. But don't tell the world that's your plan. I'm going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I've decided. Really, you want to say that? You're trying to be president. Well, but Tuesday, Thursday, Kamala has really stepped into the role. Don't say it. So I see this all, honestly, as a preamble to him dropping out. I think he's a proud man. I think he's worked hard for this job. And I think that it's also very hard to let go of this job. But there you go. Thank you. What is Spank saying? FDR had extreme physical health problems, and he won a war on 2 continents. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. And I really like this comment from Spank for another reason, because FDR covered, even though everybody knew, covered his infirmities such that they weren't on full display. He struggled to stand, to walk. I mean, he really couldn't walk. He was, in those braces and was always helped along. But let's get smart about things. I'd also suggest that this media environment really makes it harder for you as a candidate to cover much. I'm really tired of the DNC choosing who we can elect. I agree with you, Judy, and I think we saw it in the case of Bernie Sanders when they didn't allow Bernie to really have access to the superdelegates against Hillary Clinton. I mean, that may seem like ancient history to you, but not to me. This media environment, you need somebody who comes across well. You need some vitality, and I'm sorry, but Joe on his best day does not. Vilma, when the phone rings at 3 a.m. in the morning, I certainly don't want Donald Trump to answer. Exactly. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's such a fair point that Donald Trump can't find his butt with both hands. But then he'll tell you how great he is. But no one is focused on that right now because you've got a president who is doddering. And it's unacceptable. And I was a Biden. My view was, look at what the man has done.
Yeah.
His first term was really transformational in so many ways. I'm so proud of what he did. And he did really bridge some of the gaps in a highly partisan environment. But now I would say, I'm sorry. The expiration date is past. And I'm ready to roll the dice. I think if you don't, and this is where Abigail Disney is right, you will lose. You will, if you run this guy, you will lose. And by now it's just been stated and stated and stated because it's true. The stakes are insanely high. Yep. So Smash the like button like a
Smash
boss, if
it
you would.
with
We
your
need the
iron rod.
thumbs up. We've moved over to YouTube. I'm excited to be here. I really am excited, everybody, that you can see my cadaverous pallor every day. It's very, you're probably wondering, how can I get that ghost-like look that Mark Thompson has? Well, we haven't come out with any products yet, but right now it's just something you have to enjoy via YouTube. So, I am excited, though, that, and by the way, speaking of cadaverous looks, we'll talk more about the whole situation with Joe Biden with Michael Shore. Before I completely get off Joe Biden, the Goop, Sanjay Gupta, weighed in. And he wrote a lengthy piece, or an editorial. He wants a cognitive exam. Isn't that what he wants, Producer Albert? You have the video?
Yeah, that is correct. And we do have.
Here's
him
a little
talking
bit of
about it.
the Goop talking about what he wants for Joe Biden.
CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, is calling on President Joe Biden to undergo cognitive testing and share his results with the American people after what he calls, quote, concerning behavior at last week's presidential debate. Sanjay Gupta is joining us right now. Okay, so Dr. Sanjay Gupta, I mean, what provoked you to do this?
Well, Fred, good morning. First of all, this is not a political essay. It's a medical one. And I think a lot of the things that, people saw at that debate weren't necessarily new, but they were sustained. And I think more pronounced than what we had seen in the past. And I think that's what really provoked the essay. I think that the question really being raised is, have we been looking at episodes, intermittent episodes, or is this reflective of some sort of deeper underlying condition? And that's what I really wanted to get at. Let me tell you a few of the things that specifically jumped out. And I will also mention, as you're looking at some of these specific signs that neurologists noted, that after the debate, I got a lot of calls, texts, emails from my neurology and brain science colleagues from around the world, frankly, sort of highlighting some of these things. But if you take a look, slow response time, I think we saw that, sort of in a sustained fashion. Definitive word retrieval mix-ups, rambling, sometimes confused speech, reduced voice volume as well, and reduced facial movements. And these things can all be connected. We often think of cognition simply being memory, but if someone has an underlying movement disorder, for example, that can actually affect cognition in the sense that people may have more flattened affect, face, and not really be speaking as quickly or as loudly. Now, if he were my patient, if he were my dad, frankly, I would want to get more testing done, cognitive testing and more detailed movement disorder testing as well. Now, you've heard, Fred, what the White House has said about this. They say, look, it was a bad night for him. He had late nights. He had jet lag. He had a cold. We heard he wasn't taking any medications for that. And those things can cause temporary brain fog, if you will. But again, this idea, are we looking at episodes of something, or is this a condition that should be more fully investigated? And it really seems to be more of the latter.
Okay, so...
Okay, good. So thank you, Albert, for that. So what I was curious about was, and this is where I've always sort of looked at this, maybe you have as well, I was curious as to how often is he checking out? Like, I'm going to give you a senior moment. I really am. I mean, look, there are plenty of people who are old. This has been my position for years because it's true. There are plenty of people who are old. You can't look at the age on their driver's license and make a determination as to how competent they are. It's just not the case that older people all of a sudden age out of competence. You can have a senior moment as an aging person, if you will, an 80-year-old, even 85-year-old, and you can still be insanely good when you're not having a senior moment. And senior moments don't last forever.
There are people in their 40s who walk into a room and can't and forget why, right?
Of course, that's true too. I mean, and again, please understand. Please understand. I should say that I'm not trying to enable some narrative for Joe Biden. I've just told you how I feel about this thing. But I also was curious as to exactly how often these various things, which look really bad when Sanjay Gupta lays them all out. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a dating profile that, that you have any of those things on that list. But I I was curious how often they manifest themselves, right? So this in the LA Times just today, and it comes from 6 different reporters who are contributing to this piece. So in other words, there was a collective journalism involved. President Biden's conduct behind closed doors in the Oval Office, on Air Force One, and in meetings around the world is described in the same dual way by those who regularly see him in action. He is often sharp and focused, but he also has moments, particularly later in the evening when his thoughts seem jumbled and he trails off mid-sentence or seems confused. Sometimes he doesn't grasp the finer points of policy details. He occasionally forgets people's names, stares blankly, and moves slowly. Biden's occasional struggles with focus may not be unusual for someone his age. But with the 81-year-old Biden seeking another 4 years in the White House, the moments when he's off his game have taken on a fresh resonance after his disastrous debate performance, they point out. So, in private, they say he really is the same as in public. The way Biden acts in private, according to regular observers, often tracks how he comes off publicly. In both settings, he can be commanding one day and halting another. A day after the debate, his voice at a North Carolina rally was forceful, his eyes alert, his delivery confident. I give you my word as a Biden. I would not be running again if I did not believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Well, let me say something about that right now. And again, I think this cake is baked. I think he's going to have to baby step his way out. And we'll talk to Michael Shore about what the timing might be. My dad just passed away. 2 weeks ago, was it? Something like that?
Yeah.
My dad was, I'm going to say, 20 times smarter than Joe Biden. He was brilliant. I mentioned on this show that an award-winning economist at the World Bank told his son, that guy is the smartest guy I've ever met. He's talking about my father. Toward the end of his life, he got COVID. He was hospitalized, and it messed with his brain, and he started to lose a step. And he lost 2 steps, and so on. But I'm talking about mental acuity, right? Mm-hmm. And I asked him, because this goes to the, I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe in all my heart and soul I can do this. He was planning a lecture. My dad was a lecturer and academician toward the end of his life. Before that, he was a constitutional lawyer. Wrote the Constitution for Guam and Puerto Rico, I think. You think
Wow.
I'd know that for sure, but
That's
yeah,
really cool.
Yeah, so he's they call him the Thomas Jefferson of Guam. But anyway,
my God, I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, so my point is my dad was a ninja, okay? He was an intellectual ninja. And, Shakespeare, sports, theater, politics. He was amazing. I was really incredible. But I'm making a point about his confidence in his mental acuity. So this brilliant man who got COVID, my father, as he's preparing this lecture, he was having trouble remembering the stories that he was lecturing on. Uh-oh. Like I asked him, what's the plot of this? And I would sit there, and he wouldn't really be able to take me through it. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, I said, hey, Dad, do you think you've lost a step maybe mentally through everything, the hospital and all that stuff? He said, I don't really think so. He said, I've heard other people say maybe I have, and he said maybe I have. I don't know. He said, but I don't feel as though I've lost a step. And now back to Joe Biden, because my dad had lost a step, way more than a step, and he was coming from a way higher mountaintop intellectually than Joe Biden. But Joe Biden is a brilliant politician, and again, I give him immense credit for what he has done. An extraordinary 3.5 years. Transformative is the word I would use. When it comes to environmental policy, when it comes to infrastructure policy, no, we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a lot. Navigating the Medicare negotiation on drugs, and yet on stage, he couldn't even take credit for it.
Yep.
I mean, there was so much to go after Trump on. In this very important television moment, he locked up, and I think now he's lost a couple of steps. And when you ask him, do you think you've lost a couple of steps? I think he answers like my dad. No, I don't. I don't think I've lost a couple.
Do you think it's because the people who can't admit that they've lost a few steps can't admit it to themselves, or because they seriously aren't good judges of whether they've lost it. Like, they just don't understand that they've lost it.
I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter. I think I think my dad would answer honestly to me. He goes, "Yeah, I think I've lost a couple." You know what I mean? My dad would not, but there was not an arrogant bone in my dad's body. So that's just, it's recent, and I use it as a kind of a guide. But I think I think Joe Biden believes he hasn't really lost it. And I believe he can, he probably can govern, to be honest. As I've said, he could probably govern from an easy chair better than Donald Trump.
Sure.
Donald Trump's going to be on the golf course. He's going to be in a bathrobe for most of the morning watching Fox and Friends. He's going to come down at 11 o'clock. He's not read anything. He's going to bluster and blow. He's going to jump on a helicopter, go to wherever, and go play golf. That's what he did. We've seen it. Meantime, his henchmen are going to ruin America. That's the way it's going to go down. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.